kind of holistically, you're now seeing, data, you see IT, you see this AI, but then we now see digital coming along, and we have these chief digital officers, and then there's a chief information officer, and there's a chief data officer, and you sit there and go, and they all report into the same executive potentially, or different executives. IT reports into one organization, and the digital office is reporting to another organization, and data somewhere in between the two. How do you see this interoperability between different roles of digital, data, IT working together? What's your thoughts on that?
I think there's no magic formula to it. I wish I could just go sometimes, 10 years ahead and look back and say, hey, anybody really solved this? What's the magic formula, if you will? So I don't think there's a magic formula. I think it changes also from industry to industry, because from my experience, having worked in financial services, having worked a little bit in retail, having worked, now in medtech and healthcare, how mature we are along the data maturity journey, let's call it, right, from industry to industry. I think on average this changes. And then also within the company. So how do I see it working together? I really think you have to look at it within the context of the company and what we're trying to do. And, does every company have both a digital officer, digital team, and a, technical team, and a CIO and a CDO, however companies decide to do, the factor that's going to help it really is being very clear about what does CDO do in my company? What does the CIO do? What does the digital team do, right? There is no one definition for what these things mean across. And, even CDO, right? We talked about that, chief data officer. What do they do, right? It's different definitions from company to company, from industry to industry. So how do they come together? I think it just needs to be whatever works for that company. The underlying winning thought here, I think, is just be very clear as to what is the scope and what is everybody accountable and driving for. That being said, also very clear about how these teams work together, the leaders and their teams, right? So to me, having that clear RACI, to say it in very simple terms, is what is important here. And no magic formula other than that.
I agree with you. There's no right formula. It varies industry to industry, but clearly on the scope. The only thing to say to that, I think the incentive models for each one need to be thought through.
I think you're making a great point, Baz. Absolutely. What are the incentives? And that's why it's important to have that clarity of what are people accountable for, right? So they can be measured and incentivized for that. So it almost goes to really just the fundamentals. No matter what the new technology, right? No matter what it is, where we are in our maturity, right? The fundamentals, in my opinion, really need to be part of this, right? That clarity and the collaboration, and like you said, what are we being measured on and incentivized for, and what are we accountable for, and having those clear expectations so that we can deliver, and obviously working together, because the other thing too is they're different pieces of the same puzzle. So unless all these teams, unless we all come together, we know, where every piece falls to put the puzzle together, it's not going to work. You cannot have just one team be successful and leave everybody behind. For the company as overall, we cannot really move the needle and go forward unless we bring all these puzzle pieces together to build the puzzle, the company. So that's the other thing too. It's teamwork, and going towards common business goals for the organization.